When logs come into the SIEM, right, what we need to do is that some logs are not getting parsed, and we are not seeing alerts against them on the dashboard. In that case, what we need is to parse that log and have the alerts against it appear on the SIEM dashboard, right? So, in that case, we write decoders. Now we have written the decoder. It decoded that rule and informed us. It fetched the data from it and gave it to us right. Now we have to display it on the dashboard. For that, we then write rules. Those rules are written against that decoder. The rule triggers and shows us the alert on the dashboard. So, inside the SIEM machine, there are two types of rules and decoders we have. There are custom ones and default ones. If we talk about the machine, it has a folder inside it. We will go to var ASIC, etc. Okay? These are the default rules we get. These are the ones that already exist in the default settings, which are never custom. They are predefined ones. If we go back a little, if we go to this CD, etc., here we have two folders, one for rules and one for These rules and decoders are the ones that we write custom later. In these decoders, meaning, we add them as custom here. There is a local decoders file present here. Since this is a new machine, there are not many default decoders present as such yet. So, there is only one local decoder file here. So, in this directory, we then create and save our own decoder. First, let me give a basic overview of the decoders that I already have written. After that, we will discuss their syntax. In detail, this file has opened here. Basically, we write rules and decoders in XML format, right? The file extension we use is .xml, correct. I am showing you a basic format. After this, we will also write it properly and see how to validate it, okay? This is a complete decoder written for a SIEM firewall against its logs, right? Now, do you know the concept of parent and child in this? Meaning, there is one parent, in terms of programming. So, first of all, if you have, say, 5 logs, right? All of them belong to the same category. Suppose all 5 are from a firewall, right? They have some similarities. There is only a difference in 1 or 2 fields, right? But the category is the same, right? So, what we do then is we create a parent decoder for it. For example, I created a parent decoder here, right? I named it SIEM. I will explain this after that. We created its child decoders, and, in that we informed that this is the parent decoder, we also defined which its parent decoder is. So, this is how we convey the parent and child concept. We defined the decoder name. After that, we defined the parent, specifying which one is our parent, right? After that comes regex regular expressions, which is the main highlight of this entire decoder. The main thing to learn, or the main thing which needs more focus, is this part. If we want to write regex, this is a website from where we can validate the regex we write, right? Now here we get 2 fields, one for the regular expression and one for the test string. Now, the test string is what you write. The regular expression against your log will come in the test string field. We will write our log here, and in the regular expression field, we will write our regex. I am just giving an overview now. After this, we will also try implementing it, right? And the regex we wrote is already verified from here. Okay, and the type we wrote, peeker2. This is the format of the regex. Regex comes in different formats. Are you seeing this? So, we use the latest one. PCRE2 will always be used. We will use PCRE2, and after this, we have orders. What happens in order is, suppose the log we received. What information are we getting from it now? Suppose it is telling us the version. It is telling us the event ID. It is also telling the event type. So wait a minute. Let's search for a log, okay? Look at these fields. What all fields is it telling us right now? It is telling us the time. It is telling us the host name. What information are we getting in these logs? Right. Service protocol is there. Source IP is there. Request detail. Request response code, right. Agent. Now what we will do, which we have, these orders are the fields that this decoder is extracting for us. And these fields are already present in the log. Everything is based on that, right? Okay. And along with that, we have rules. The rules automatically depend on the decoder. What name did we write for the decoder there? SIEM. Here we will also provide the group name and decode it as which decoder we are using against which you are writing the rule, right? Okay. First we will create a group. The group tag, right? We started the group tag and ended the group tag. In that, we wrote the name of the group, saying this is the group. For our purpose, we can give the group any name. We gave it SANGFOR 12,345, saying this is the group against which we are writing our rule. We provided the rule ID. Okay? In the case of the rule ID, one must be careful that there is no repetition in the rule ID if a rule with this rule ID already exists. It must be unique. The ID of every rule is unique. Suppose the IDs of my rule and this other rule are the same, right? When this rule runs, the SIEM will only run that rule, the rule it finds first, with that ID. It will run that one, and even if 100 other rules are created against that ID, it will ignore them. The disadvantage will be that if, say, a rule is made for SANGFOR, and a rule is made for a Huawei switch, if the SANGFOR rule is earlier in the file, it will run that and ignore the Huawei rule. This will result in a loss of monitoring, so only one will run. So, we must take care of this ID after that. We define its level. What is the level? Meaning, the severity level. Like we get alerts on the dashboard, that this alert has this severity level. Whether it is critical, high, low, or medium, we can define it ourselves, that if this decoder runs against log ABC, right, whose rule is this? And if it triggers, its severity should be set to 5, right? So we define its level here. Then the field name. This field name is what we wrote as our order in the decoder severity, right? We said basically, in the rule, we are applying condition. In that, we applied a condition type in the field, saying the field name we have is thread_severity, right? If the thread_severity we have is low, because we have also kept the level as low, right? So, the rule description, you must have seen that when an alert comes, there's a description written in it, meaning power, executed, or anything, right? That description is basically fetched from the rules. There is some rule written against it, and it is fetched from the rule and shown to us. So, this runs a description against it, saying SANGFOR firewall DOS attack detected from source IP. There is one more thing here. If we used decoded as SANGFOR, we stated that we are creating this rule against the SANGFOR decoder. You must keep in mind that the field name you write here must be the exact same field name that we wrote in the decoder so that there is no clash in it. Suppose we wrote source IP here, so make sure that the wording of the source IP written here and in the decoder is exactly the same so that there is no clash. And one more thing we use is wording like DSTIP and SRCIP as shortcuts. Some words are such that by default, what we will do, suppose it is version. If I just write version, it might be a default name of the order. So, what I will do is I will put 2 dashes or 2 underscores with it so that it doesn't match the default. But if you changed it here, make sure that you also change it in the rule. Suppose if I used a double dash there, I must also use a double dash here. Another thing, if you want in the description, suppose I wrote here SANGFOR and NGF firewall DOS attack detected from IP this. Asterisk the $sign. What this will do is, you need the source IP field, which is fetching the IP for you from here, and you want it to show up in the alert description as well. You put a $sign, and inside the round brackets you write the name of that order whose data you want on your dashboard as an alert description, right? So, this is how rules and decoders are related to each other. One more thing is that we can apply a condition within a condition, a nested condition now. Suppose if we look at the rules here, okay, I created this one related to low severity. Then I want it to show me an alert even if the severity is medium XV. I gave it medium severity. Now I am saying, when the severity is high, I can add it. So we can add multiple rules. Now look, a log came, it was showing the threat severity as well, right? Now the threat severity can differ in every log, meaning sometimes it will be high, sometimes low, sometimes critical. So suppose I only created this one rule, right? And I wrapped it up saying, my rule is complete against this log or this decoder. Now what will it do? It will only show logs that come against that specific severity on the dashboard. It will ignore those that are high, critical, or medium. Because there is no rule against them, the log will look only at the fields of the existing rule. Try to create multiple rules, so that all the possible conditions are covered. In that, it keeps triggering its rules, so that no field is left out which might change and show up in the log, and you fail to get an alert against it. Now come to this rule. Okay, here we have DOS attack detected from source IP. We talked about every level of severity here. So here we have a totally different rule ID. we created another rule with a critical level, in that frequency and time frame. This is a very important thing. Okay, frequency means the number of repetitions, right? How many times that thing is repeating, and time frame means the number of seconds. This 60 written here defines seconds, meaning how many seconds, and frequency defines the repetition. How many number of repetitions are occurring, right? Okay, if SID or if match SID or if SID, what is this defining? That if the rules of these IDs, which we defined above, with any of these rules repeats 5 times within 60 seconds, then what alert will it show? Multiple times DOS attack detected from source IP. This right? We don't just look at whether it came and we parsed it and said, it's coming. So, if suppose it is so critical that if it comes multiple times, we need an alert for that too, saying, it is coming multiple times within this time frame. We can change this as well. We can say, no, if the time frame is 5 and frequency is 5, then if its frequency reaches 5 within 30 seconds, then show me this alert, right? So, what will it do? If any of these 4 rules triggers 5 times in 30 seconds, it will run this one rule whose description will state that multiple DOS attack detected from IP. So, when an alert for multiple occurrences is needed, if that thing is happening repeatedly, then tell me the alert as well. Why it is happening. So, this is the thing. Similarly, it depends on every log what information it contains and what its criticality is. Based on that, we then write its rules, saying, we need things this way. And basically, by looking at the log itself, we can judge which rules can be created for it and which cannot, right? Same goes for this. We have this now. What we were talking about, which I mentioned, is the description we write and the rule ID. We mentioned the description we wrote, and the rule is basically this description. This is the description we write for the rule there. So, if you want to check any log for any rule or decoder you write, what will you do? Before saving anything, you must test it once. So, if you want to test a rule or decoder you wrote, you will go to the var osic bin directory. Binaries will be located here. Multiple binaries are located here. If you check the binaries, you will find wazoo logtest here. You must run it directly. You run it. When you run the test, a prompt will open for you where you can test any of your rules by pasting your log. For example, if we go back here and copy a log, we will have multiple logs going through. We copied it from here and pasted our log after searching. Now, it will take some time to show you the output. So, look, we parsed the rule here, and it decoded everything. Security ID. Everything was parsed and given. So, this is how you can test your written decoder or rule here. Log test. So, the next thing is, for example, let's take an example. We have a log. Okay, the log, for example, will first have, let's say we got the timestamp, and after that, we have to write the time. Let's say the time is 10:30. For example, after the time, we have something like the name, then we have login, then user came. So, we consider this as a random log from any device whose parser does not currently exist within the system, right? So, first of all, what will we do? We will first copy this log and come to our logtest to check if it is being parsed by any old existing decoder. If it is, then the approach will be different. So, we will run it in logtest first and check. So, we will run it in our logtest. So, look, it showed no decoder match, right? But the rule log user authentication failure hit because the keyword login failure was present in it. So, a rule already exists that, instead of running properly without generically fetching data using a decoder, since this was an authentication failure, a critical alert in the one rule is already created inside to tackle this so that this log doesn't get missed by the user. So, that rule hit, but it is not decoding, so its decoder is missing. So, what will we do? First, we will write its decoder, and then we will also write a rule specific to this device for authentication failure. So, first of all, we have to write the decoder. So, we will go to var osic, etc., decoders, and there will already be multiple decoders lying here. You can create any new file. We created an HTML file in that we opened the decoder tag and closed it. Now, after opening and closing the decoder tag, we assign a specific name to every decoder, which we will use while creating the rule to match the rule, to tell the rule that if the decoder with this name runs, then you run. So, let's name it test. So, we name the decoder. Now, the first thing inside the decoder is pre. What is pre? Pre-match is where you tell the decoder, based on what criterion, it should filter its own logs from the multiple different logs coming from different devices, and bring them to itself for processing. You can write anything in this. For example, let's look at the log. We'll keep a unique thing inside the log we created. For example, test devices. So we will write test devices inside premat. Now what will happen? Any log that comes which contains the word test devices, that log will come to this decoder. Anything unique can be written. You just need to identify a unique thing. For example, if you have a new router or a new switch from a new vendor, you need to identify a unique thing in its logs that only appears in its logs. For example, the device name, the device model number, or the device vendor, so that all logs from that vendor's devices come to the parser or decoders you wrote for that device. So, after pre-match, next we have rejects. What is Based on rejects, you can separate useful or fruitful things from inside your log. So, for example, we started the regex tag here. We ended the regex tag. You must define the type of regex we use. We use the type PCRE2, so PCRE2 is fixed everywhere. Okay, now you have to write regex. There are multiple things for regex. I will tell you an easy way that will make writing regex very easy for you. So, you can go to any site on the internet. There are multiple ones. You can use any of them, but we use regex 101. So here you can write your regex and test whether your regex is correct or not. Right. So, PCRE2 is selected by default here. So, you will write your regex above here and insert your log below. So, for example, we copy the log we wrote here and paste it here. So, what should you do with You need to write the regex in such a way that you can separate the fruitful things in this log and save them inside some variables. Okay, so the basics of regex are this. If you want to define or, let's say, read, in easy terms any integer number, you write d in the regex, right? Okay, now with d, two things will happen. One is that it has statically defined d, the other will be numbers. How will that happen? To read decimal values, then for that, you will write a /d. Now it will read the number. Now, if you want to read numbers, you write d, then it will read numbers. Okay, now keep checking your output simultaneously here, whether it is reading single words or single numbers, like 2, 5, etc. But when you write the regex or the decoder, you need this port number 22 together, or this entire IP address together, or this timestamp or date together. You don't need these as 1, 2, 3, 4. So, what will you do? You will put a ++ after it. Now, what will this do? It will keep reading numbers until a non-number character appears. For example, it reads from left to right. So, for example, it started here. It will keep reading numbers until something other than a number comes. Now it read 2025. After that, because there was no number, there was a dash, so it skipped it. Then it started reading the number again. Then a dash came. It skipped it. Then the number died. It will read all numbers. Right now, numbers will be read. Okay, if you want to read words, you will use W, right? Numbers are also included in words. Got it? Now, if you want to read spaces, you will use S lowercase. Now it will only read spaces. If you want to whitelist or white label something, for example, the fruitful thing in my log is at the end here. I don't need this much log from here up to here. So, what will you do? You will white label it with .****. Now, if you use .***, it will read anything. Now look. In the match, it showed you the entire log. Now what did you need? Everything before the IP. So, what will you do? *IP. Now look, the regex reading is limited up to the IP. It left the next part, Now you write your regex forward to pick that up, right? And if you want to do the inverse asterisk, for example, you want it to read everything except digits, then the backslash will be the same thing but in uppercase. If you say read everything except decimals, you will use capital D and AD+. Now it will read everything except numbers. If you use capital W, it will read everything except words. If you use capital S, it will read everything except spaces. So, lowercase s means space. Capital S means everything except space. Next thing is that we want to separate a fruitful piece of information from our entire log and store it in a variable. How do we do that? For that, small brackets are used. This thing's small brackets, and we call them groups. You see groups appearing here. Group 1, Group 1, Group 1. So, for example, when you start writing the regex, Wazoo will automatically extract the timestamp for you. Or when the log is received, Wazoo will already extract the timestamp in the alerts and tell you when this alert occurred. So, you won't need this. So, your main concern will be this portion. Now, what is important for you in this? First, the username on which the login failure occurred, which port was used, and which IP performed it. These three things. And the fourth thing, if we want, we can keep this. Or we can also extract the word failure from it for different uses. It depends on your preference what you want to separate from the log. Now, this device name, we wrote this as common, and this part will also be common in every device. In every log. For example, if it happened, it will be common. What is the name of the device? So, we will hardcode this. Device, namespace. Now, look ahead. There are commas. So, we will write them just like that, and now, this name and the device name can be different. So, what will we do? For example, we say we need the device name, so we will create a small bracket group, and inside this group, we will write the regex for that portion that we want to collect from the log. For example, we have reached here now, this device name, we have reached the device name, and we need the device name. So, we will write its regex inside this group. Since we wrote test device here, it could be test FW123 or anything, or even special characters can come. Even 1, 2, 3 can come. Anything can come in the device name. So, for anything, we will use white label. So, what will white label be? Dot asterisk. Asterisk, why did it go all the way to the end? Because what did we put after the dot asterisk? A comma. Since it is taking everything, it will go up to the last comma it finds, because there is no other comma after this. If I put a comma here, it will limit itself up to here. See? I removed this comma, and it went all the way back. Now, what do we use to limit it? We use a question mark. Now, when we put a question mark after dot asterisk, what will it do? The question mark means it will search for the next value that I wrote in the reg. When this value comes the next time, it will stop there. It will do this word by word. For example, if I now remove the comma from the regex here, so, look, it limited itself here. It didn't even read this. I put a question mark after it, saying, white label, but I don't know where your limit is, so, by putting a question mark, you have to define the limit for it. White label, but where should you stop? Where you find the first comma, or perhaps an exclamation mark, so, if you put a comma after this, it will break there when it finds this value for the first time. Now look in the match output. This much portion is coming in the match, and the device name is coming inside the group. So, you have separately collected the device name from the log. Now, the next part, for example, I say this is useless to me. I can even write this directly as hard-coded inside the regex. Now I wrote this much, and it brought me up to here. Now, what's next? Username. I need the username. Now, after this, you create another group ahead. In that, you have to capture the username. The username can be anything 1, 2, 3, dash. So, you put asterisk here, 2, put a question mark, and tell it to limit up to wherever it finds the next comma dot. So, okay, so, we have the username. Now, next, we took the port and port space. Now, since the port is always in numbers, we will use a digit here. Space from IP, okay. Now there are two ways ahead of this. Now its IP comes ahead. There will be two ways for the IP, I will tell you. So, One way is that you grouped it actually. Leave the group for now. We will group it later. Okay, what is the first way? Digits D plus is red. After this, what is there? A dot. We put a dot. Then you used a digit. Then put a dot. Then used a digit. Then put a dot. And then put a digit. That is one way. There is a slightly more advanced way. What is that? What did you do? You put brackets right inside the brackets. You define the decimal as a digit and you put a dot ahead, and outside the square bracket, you put a plus sign. Now this is read completely now. For example, you can do whatever you want after this. This will be read completely, up to the dot, and one method is using dot asterisk and ending it so. All three methods can be used dot so. The main purpose is that it should be read. You can do it however you like. Now, you wanted to store the IP in a variable, but you didn't create a group for the IP. So, what will you do? You enclose the regex that reads the IP. Okay, this is correct. Now look, the whole log is read. Group 1, device name. Group 2, your username. Group 3, your port. And Group 4, your IP. This is your regex. Now you will directly take this whole thing, copy it. You will paste it into the regex section inside the decoder you created here. And it's closed. Now the next tag we have is order. What is order? Order is the names of the variables in which you will store these grouped values. You can write value 1, value 2, value 3, A, B, C, D, anything. Write devname src underscore IP, src IP, anything for src. Okay, right. So you have to write it. But in sequence, what is that sequence? The one that came out here. Now, the first thing that came out is device name. The second is username. The third is port. And the fourth is IP. So, you will define the first variable for the device name, the second for the username, the third for the port, and the fourth for the IP. Okay, so here we wrote device. After that came the second thing, the user. So username, after that came the port, and after that came the source IP. So our decoder is complete now. Let's test it. Log test ran. We copied our log and pasted it here. There you go. So, phase 2 of your decoder is complete. In it, the decoder's name came as testing, device name came, IP came, port came, and username came. Now, this existing rule is already hitting, which is level 5, which is low if you want to proceed with this. No problem. Let it run on this. If you don't want to go with this, you can write your own rules so. For that, what will you do? You will go to the rules directory, and in those rules, there are already rules written. These rules are already present. You create a file with your own name now. Its entire syntax must have been explained to you already. So, give the group any name. Say group and you close the group. After that, you will write a rule, to which you will give any unique ID. I will give an example now. Anything, and we defined a level for what level it will be. For example, we will say now that it will be level 5. Low level, low severity, and we will end the rule. And inside the rule, the name of the decoder will now be used here. So, the tag decoded as will come here. And the name of your decoder, which we name testing, will come here now. You will close the decoded s tag here. And here you will write your description and end the description. And in the description, you will write what you want to see on the front end. For example, login failure attempted. Okay, now after this, one thing comes up. For example, you want to write a value here, login failure from any IP or something. So, what will you do for that? For that, you will call the value login. I need to see the IP, so, what is the way for that? A $sign, your small brackets, and inside the brackets, you will write the name of your variable. For example, I used it on the front end. Okay, so I just told you the basics. Let's go back. We pasted the log and checked again by pressing enter whether it goes to phase 3 or not. And it was going to phase 3 before as well. Does our okay. one I wrote, that is one way. If it doesn't run directly, what will you do? For example, check which rule ID is hitting. 2501 rule ID is hitting. So, what can you do? You can make your rule a child of this existing rule, so, what can you do? 2501 is already running with your decoder, so even if you remove decoded as, there is no problem. Leaving it there is also fine. Now, what will happen? If 2501 hits, then this rule will hit. So, that is one thing since I have it open. I will also show you a little bit of conditioning so you can apply conditions in this as well. You say that if the then I should get an alert if it is happening on any other port. I should not get an alert. What will you do for that? A tag called field is used for that. You will open, for example, what did I keep? Decoders src_port. So, what will we do? We will tell the name of our variable inside the field, src. You want this alert to trigger if it comes on 22, so you will write 22 in this right. If something else comes besides 22, this rule will not run. If 22 comes, then this rule will run okay. So, we can apply conditions. Now we go back and run it in log test. Right now look, from this IP, now let's check by changing the value. For example, I will keep the port 22 here, but I will change the IP here. For example, we used 192.1043 and we copied this and pasted it here. And pasted, so, look, the value changed here. Now let's change the port. For example, instead of 22, we make it 25 now. We checked it, and look, our rule didn't run. Only the existing log rule ran, because it didn't have this condition, the one for 23. No, sorry, 25. If the 25 condition had been applied in that one too, it wouldn't have run either. Now it is hitting. Now, what is the scenario? 2501 ran. After 2501 ran, it came to our rule. Because we had put the CID 2501 in edif 2501 runs, then ours will run now 2501. Ran the log came to ours after being parsed by the decoder, but in that, it didn't find port 22, so then ours didn't run. Another one ran that was created against it earlier. You had applied that condition, so because of that, it didn't run okay. Now what is the next case we have? The frequency one, which you can call the correlation rule, the correlated rule. So, now if you want to create a correlated rule, you will create a rule, right? You will give it an ID. So for example, we define its level as critical 14, and in this we will give the frequency how many times this rule should trigger before running once. For example, we say it should run when it triggers 5 times, meaning it will trigger 4 times, and the 5th time this correlated rule will run, and then we will apply a time frame. In how much time? So, we say if the rule above hits 4 times in 30 seconds, then the 5th time, this one will run itself. Okay, now, the rule where frequency is applied uses if matched SID. It does not use if SID, it uses if matched SID now. In if matched SID, we will give the ID of the rule above, 999,999 asterisk, and after giving matched SID, now we will run log stand. We will come to our log to stand, verify our rule. It ran once. Ran twice. And the frequency to 1 times, for example. If we set the frequency to 5, the rule above will run 4 times. The 5th time, this rule will run, for example. Instead of simple multiple login failure, you want that if there from same source IP for that. What simple thing will be applied? You will apply same underscore strip in your rule, and a self-closing tag will be used. So this will ensure the trigger. This is a built-in condition, same underscore strip. You can create multiple rules within one group. Create as many as you want. You can create multiple rules within a group tag. You can also have multiple group names. Now, this test group I put above, I gave it one name, for example. If you want to give multiple names, here G1, G5, G6. You can give anything now. Since all the rules within this entire group exist, this group name will come with all those rules. But if you want, for example, a specific rule you created within this group, which you also want to put in a separate group name, in addition to the top ones, then what will you do? You can put an individual group tag inside that. For example, in this multiple attempt rule you created, you want to put a group tag like ... Want to create a group so, when the rule above hits, or besides these, or even if this one hits, then all these groups will definitely come in the rules groups. But when this specific rule hits, these groups will also come, and this individual group name will come along with it. For example, I will show you. Look, if I save this and run in logtest, okay, now look what came in my rules groups. It includes up to 6 because the login failure rule just ran. Now I run the multiple one within 30 seconds. Let's check this. The output comes after triggering again. Okay, now it ran the simple one, login failure, and multiple now. Look at the multiple rules groups. The ones from above are coming, and the individual one you inserted specifically for that rule is also coming in the groups now. You have applied your rules now. These rules, although you have saved files, the backend module for the rules will not read them. Until you restart the manager service, it will not permanently implement them to apply to the real-time logs being received after that. So, for that, you just have to restart the manager. After running systemtal restart, the file will be saved on the OS. But for Wazoo to read and implement it on real-time logs, it needs to be restarted.
Get to know about us by visiting our website, and follow us on YouTube, Instagram and LinkedIn.